Hi guys, welcome back to Battle with Ola. This is Mujela Lua and I'm super thrilled to be here once again. Thank you so much for the show of love and thank you so much for all the pleasant and all the positive feedback that we've got so far on the channel. It's been amazing. It's been a blast. Thank you so much. I'm personally so happy, so grateful to God that I get to be a part of so many lawyers and law students and laymen's legal and law practice journeys, and it's really fulfilling and thrilling. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today we want to talk about Fiat. 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 It's very simple, straightforward. You'd recall, if you've read the Bible, or if you're a Christian, or you've heard the creation story, when God wanted to create the worlds, it started, or the world rather, heaven and earth, it started by saying, let there be light. In Latin, that is translated into fiat lux, let there be light. So going by that, train of interpretation, fiat means let there be, let it be done, let it happen. So fiat is essentially an authoritative decree or command issued for something to happen or something to be carried out, something to be done. Today, fiat finds expression in the judiciary, in the executive arm, in administrative procedures in general, and we're going to be looking at that. But don't forget that fiat essentially means let it be done. Let something be carried out. Let an act be done. Let something happen. Let it come into existence. And it is not to be confused with delegation. But before we get to that, let's look at it in the judiciary. In the judiciary, a judge can issue a fiat. It can cause the occurrence of an action by a fiat. So if a case is ongoing, it could give a directive that, let something be done. Let parties do this. Let the council do this in this matter, by fiat. But the commonest expression, especially for lawyers, would be the fiat court. What is a fiat court? A fiat court is a court that comes into existence by the decree or by the authority of the chief judge of a jurisdiction, permitting or ordering or legalizing the coming back of a judge that's been transferred out of that that seating of the court, to come back and conclude their matter. So let me give an example. Let's say there's a judge of court 8 sitting in Ring Road, Ibadan, and now that judge is transferred to Shaki Judicial Division to start sitting maybe in the court 2 of Shaki Judicial Division. And then this judge, before being transferred, had 50 matters in his docket, matters that were ongoing, some maybe near conclusion, some trial stage, just ongoing generally. So the chief judge can issue a fiat that allows that judge, who has now resumed in Shaki, to come back on selected days to sit on his Ring Road matters until he completes them. So the court wherein he sits will be a fiat court. So that means that court 8 is still existing and there's a new judge in court 8 that's been put there since he has been transferred. But, he comes back to sit on matters that were before him in court 8 before transfer, just until he concludes those matters. So that these matters will not need to be started de novo. De novo means from the beginning, from the start. If you're following our Latin for Lawyers series, I believe we've talked about de novo. Please look for the series on the channel and look through, the Latin terms that we've talked about, defined and explained with examples. So instead of starting de novo and putting all the efforts of all stakeholders, to waste, he can come at unselected days. Maybe he'll continue to sit in his new jurisdiction from Mondays to Thursdays or Mondays to Wednesdays, and then on Thursdays and Fridays he'll come back and sit in the fiat court until he completes. So once he completes all the cases in his docket before transfer, that court ceases to exist. So it's no longer a court properly so. So it's no longer a court in existence because he's finished all the cases in his docket. Court 8 has a new judge that is sitting on matters that have been freshly assigned to him, and he has his own new court 2 in Shaki. So that's a fiat court. In executive settings, we could have the fiat issued by the Attorney General. Now, by law, the Attorney General can issue a fiat to a private lawyer to prosecute state matters or to try state matters, even if they are civil. So, state matters could be civil or criminal, and the Ministry of Justice usually has lawyers, that have been employed to represent the state in those matters. But in some instances, it could be that maybe they are short-staffed. It could be that there will be conflict of interest. For instance, if the subject matter concerns the state so much so that if the state should continue or represent itself in that matter, it will not appear to the Clapham ombudsman that justice has been done and there's been no bias or prejudice. Then the state can, farm out those cases to private lawyers to represent the state, so that the conflict of interest is dealt with. So it could be to avoid conflict of interest, and it could be for expertise if the lawyers in the Ministry of Justice do not have the requisite expertise to undo that particular case, and the case feels that, getting a private lawyer whose area of expertise is in that, field will do justice, and protect the interest of the state better. They can farm out the cases. So when the cases are farmed out, the state, through the Attorney General, issues a fiat to the private lawyer to represent the state, because otherwise the private lawyer, although he can represent clients in civil matters as well as criminal, he cannot do those that belong to the state. So the Attorney General is saying, let him do it by issuing a fiat. So that is what, if those are the commonest expressions of fiat, in the judiciary and in the executive arm of government, the administrative arm of government. So fiat generally means that there's an authority. Now they are commanding something to be done, or asking someone, to do something, to make something happen. So that is essentially what fiat is. Now let's differentiate it from delegation. We've talked about delegation on this channel. We have a video called Delegatus non potest delegare. So it's a Latin maxim that means that a delegate cannot delegate. So if you be delegated, you cannot further delegate. So go watch that video. So a fiat is different from delegation in the sense that for fiat, you're asking someone to do something. You're issuing a command, a decree, make it happen, let it be done. But for delegation, you're transferring your authority to do something to someone, for that person to do such things on your behalf. So in the example of the state that I gave, for instance, the Attorney General is commanding by fiat a private lawyer to represent the state, but that is to prosecute matters on behalf of the state. So that private lawyer has the capacity ordinarily to prosecute such matters, but not on behalf of the state, probably on behalf of the other side, the defendants, if it's a prosecution, or maybe the defendants even in a civil matter, or to stand against a claimant, to represent the government against a claimant. Yeah, he can represent, a defendant ordinarily, but the Attorney General is giving the command now that represent us, represent me, represent the state. So, but in the case of delegation is transferring your authority to someone. So, for instance, prosecutors, lawyers in the Ministry of Justice, the Attorney General delegates them to represent him. So any matter that the Attorney General can do, they can do. He can represent, they can represent the Attorney General. So they are working, all of them, all lawyers in the Ministry of Justice are working for the Attorney General. So he's like the principal of the chambers. They are, the lawyers, the associates. So I hope that difference is clear. So for delegation, you're transferring authorities like that. So the person becomes an agent. But for fiat, you are commanding, go do this, go do that. So that person is not your agent, necessarily not your agent, but you're asking it, and it's usually for a particular function. So in case of delegation, it could be for an ongoing function. For instance, when you have an agent for as a landlord, the agent continues to represent you in all matters concerning your property, to sell, to buy, to put tenants in, to evict tenants and all of that. So for fiat, it could be okay, go get those tenants out of my property, and that is it. So usually it's for a one-time thing, and it doesn't extend outside of, that command. So that's why I said that when the judge finishes the cases in his docket, which he has fiat to sit on, that court dissolves. So it's no longer in existence. Not that the judge will now continue and be holding court in two places. No. So fiat is usually for a one-time thing or for a particular exercise or a particular event, while delegation could be for ongoing things. Now, for fiat as well, the person who has the fiat will deal with the matter completely. So if a lawyer has a fiat, for instance, to prosecute matters on behalf of the state government, the government will not come in and say, oh, we also want to be in this matter. We also want to represent ourselves. Let's do it together. But in the case of delegation, the government can come in to act, to do those things that it already delegates an agent to do. So if you are a Ministry of Justice counsel, for instance, a state counsel, and you've gone to court maybe for a murder matter, the Attorney General could come to court and say, okay, I'm interested in this particular case file. So he would announce his appearance and announce you alongside him. Or he could say, okay, hand the file back to me. I want to do this matter myself. But in case of fiat, the state will not come into that matter to do it with you, alongside you. So for delegation, some power still reside with the delegator, which he can exercise alongside the delegatee. But for fiat, that does not happen. Once a fiat is issued, the fiatee, so to speak, is to do what the fiat says and empowers him to do, stricto sensu. So I hope you understand the difference. So fiat. Have you been to a fiat court? I've been to a fiat court before. We had a number of cases in a fiat court back in the day. And also, I recall that when I was working in a law firm in Benin, we had a fiat to prosecute tax debts, to recover tax debts, personal income tax for the Edo State government. So I've experienced both the executive and the judicial expressions of fiat. How about you? Let's continue the conversation in the comment section. I will see you in my very next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bring your friend along to Bar Talk with Ola. To-dos.